So I'm going to sort of go off script a little bit here because Governor Kasich and I go back more than a couple years, sort of a mentor and dear friend, and we have a very interesting sort of origin story of getting to know each other, which is actually very much related. When I was 19, I gave a speech. I was much younger back then, but I gave a speech, and a few days later, I get a phone call from a congressman's office that he wants to meet with me, and he was sort of impressed by my story and resiliency or sort of able to get out of some of the circumstances, and I was an undergrad at Princeton at the time. So I think he actually came to college campus and took me to lunch, or it was like a.
Did I meet you in California?
I think it was New Jersey. Yeah.
I thought I met you first in California.
I think it was New Jersey, then D.C.
Look, the story is move over. She's too shy. The story is she had this is a miracle. I'm going to tell you. You believe in God? You believe in miracles? I'm going to tell you one. This young lady was ultimately raised by her foster grandparents. She and her mother for a while lived in a car. They were homeless. And obviously the Lord's hand must have been on her, because the next thing you knew, she's a student at Princeton. Okay? And then she graduates, so I meet her, and it was the first time, and I think the only time I was ever on the Princeton campus, and I loved it. I remember we went to the church, because it's one of the most beautiful churches you could find anywhere in the U.S. I mean, so anyway, we got together, and I wrote a book called Courage is Contagious, which is a book about ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And it's always been a passion of mine, ordinary people who do extraordinary things, and, debunking this idea that if I can't hit a grand slam home run, in other words, a home run with three guys on base, that doesn't matter if I just get a single. And frankly, we have to think in this world today of saving one life at a time. I have a Holocaust memorial. It says if you save one life, you change the world. So Jessica... Right? So Jessica and I traveled, and they warned her. They said, you hang out with him too long, you'll become a Republican. So anyway, so this book was a bestseller, and Jessica became a star. And then I lost track of her because, I don't know what I was doing. I was busy and had left the government and all that, and she ended up working on Capitol Hill and then worked for some governmental operations. And isn't this amazing? Because her family had been plagued with these challenges. And here she is, working to save one life at a time. And we're just thrilled. And what's so ironic about it is, in our state, as I think Jessica will attest, we probably are, even though we're experiencing really tough situations, we're probably ahead of everybody in the country in terms of everything we're doing, from shutting pill mills to taking licenses from bad doctors to creating protocols for prescribers in both the chronic and acute care, to not preventing the shopping in emergency rooms, to and our greatest program, I believe, Jessica, and maybe you should come sometime, is a program called Start Talking. And that's where we are trying to be in the schools, because we know there's a 50% less likelihood of people doing drugs if they hear it. So we are contacting schools and parents, and then we have a program called 5 Minutes for Life, where we've used our highway patrol. These guys show up and women show up in these beautiful uniforms, and they meet with sports teams, with the boys and girls in high school, and they recruit them as ambassadors. So they go into the school, and then they become the peers, right? They're the people who are most respected in the school, and they then preach the message of no drugs. And then, of course, we have significant recovery programs. And Jessica's friends with a gentleman who runs our prisons. Our recidivism rate out of our prisons, when we treat people in the prisons and then we release them to the community, our recidivism rate is less than 20%, which is really amazing. So we really have to ramp it up, and I have to tell you, we have to get the schools, Jessica, more interested. We're now going to take this to higher education because, you know, we all know the stories. So just Christmas week, a friend of mine, his nephew, or his wife's nephew, and his wife overdose. They lose control of their house. They have 4 kids. One of them may never fully recover. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like people I go to church with, their son started off, Jessica, at Ohio State, and he was involved with OxyContin, and he got in a fist fight with his roommate over the last pill, and he becomes a heroin addict, and he's recovering. And I'll tell you, you talk about the power of the Lord, which, you know, everybody may not follow this, but I happen to believe in it, particularly for people who suffer addictions. I saw his mother a couple of weeks ago, and I said, how's will you stay with me? Okay, how's Sammy doing? And Dad said, well, Sammy had, you know, fallen off the wagon, but he's all right again. And his mother came back to see me. I was leaving church, and I was, because that's where I met them, and he's a big time executive. And I looked through the door, and I could see her, and this is a small little church, and she came back to see me, and she was basically kind of joyous. And I said, how could you, what's going on with you? She said, I've just turned it over to the Lord. I can't manage my son's addiction. I can support him, I can encourage him, but she's like set free. And it was so remarkable to see another testimony that we have to recognize. You know, sometimes people don't like you to talk about this, and if anybody doesn't buy what I'm saying, I don't mean to offend you, but I feel strongly about this. Then I have an executive who works at one of the big utility companies, and he used to come to see me, and I never quite knew why. I mean, this is recent, Jessica, recent. He'd come and see me, and he would sort of, I guess, seek solace somehow by talking to me. His son was in prison. He's an addict, and so after that, one day he brought his second son to see me. Big strapping, handsome, young football player, full scholarship to Division I football. Mother found him dead in the basement. And the son comes out of prison to go to the funeral of his brother. Now, I have no idea how a mom and dad can handle that. You know, these stories go on and on and on. And as we know, this disease knows no bounds, knows no income, knows no neighborhood. It's everywhere. And sometimes I wonder, Jessica, how African Americans must have felt when drugs were awash in their community and nobody watched. Now it's in our communities. And now all of a sudden we've got forums, and God bless us, but think about the struggles that other people had. I have 2 girls who are going to turn 16, and I beg them, girls, please do never do drugs. Every time I'm at a school, a university, yesterday I was in Iowa with a bunch of kids from LSU. They had come up to Iowa to observe, and I'm like begging them, please don't do drugs. And for those that are here, we do have people here who are addicts, don't we, with us today. We just can't give up. I don't want you to give up. You cannot give up, because there's a purpose for your life. Do you understand that? Everybody in this room has a God-given purpose to do something to change this world. Look at this young woman. I mean, she has taken total, in some ways, think about this, in some ways as low as you can go, okay, in some ways. And she's now running this organization. So through and look, none of us can relate. None of us can relate to the challenges that an addict faces. I would be the last one to tell you I have a clue. I have no clue how hard it must be. I don't know. And it must be just impossible. But if you can climb out of it, people will learn from you. Sammy, my friend whose parents I know, who I talked about, who's a heroin addict, he participated in Start Talking. He was out there preaching the word for a while till he moved to Alaska. He needed to get away from everything. You just never know where life is going to take you. Ask the Lord to help you. Maybe you can get set free. You look at Jessica, you have to believe in miracles. And just because a miracle happens to her doesn't mean all the miracles are used up. Miracles are never used up. There's always room for one more. So if you have some questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them, okay? Thank you.
Good to see you. I'm going to give you this wireless mic. Okay, you've all seen this before, so I'm going to hand him the wireless mic and use this other one. Why don't you take a seat, Governor?
Okay. I can't see these people. There's podiums in the way. Move that podium, Scott.
1, 2. Oh, there I am. Perfect. We're in good shape. Governor, thank you very much for your passion and for your words and for your service to the people of Ohio. And thank you for joining us today. We genuinely appreciate it. We have some questions that are actually pre-written for you to think about. They come really from the co-sponsors, many of the people in this audience who helped draft them ahead of time. So let me ask you the first one from the National Council. What are the 1 or 2 most important things the next president should do to reverse the opioid epidemic? What are those first couple of critical steps?
Well, I don't think there's just a couple. I think there's got to be a kind of a game plan. And when I look at my experience, you got to remember, what we do in Ohio is scalable. I mean, we're the 7th largest state in the country. I think it involves law enforcement having a absolute I was going to use the wrong word, but an absolute, total, and complete commitment to stopping the flow of these drugs and to putting the drug dealers in prison, okay? I mean, you have to do that. Number 2, I think we need protocols. I think we need those physicians, whoever is a prescriber, I think they have to have some rules. Now, we do it on a voluntary basis, and it's working great because I'd rather not hammer people. I'd rather get them to cooperate. So these protocols are important. So, you have a problem with a broken arm or whatever, or you get a tooth out and they don't give you, 25 OxyContins. And we have a link now, which we should create state by state, a link to the pharmacy board. And we have a pharmacy board that's very tough. So if a doctor is prescribing out of line, we know it. Now, we're building that up, and that's another significant thing. We obviously have to have money for rehab, because what we find is being able to, and it's part of the reasons why I expanded Medicaid, to take care of the drug addicted, the mentally ill, the working poor. And what's happened is because we've expanded, we've freed up a lot of resources at the community level. So when people come out of prison, they have a place to go, and hopefully they never get to prison. That's another big issue, is we've got to convince the judges that these nonviolent felons, you don't want to put them in prison. But there's a sense that, well, if I don't put them in prison, then I'm viewed as soft on crime. And this is a big issue, right, with human beings. And in a world where they're too worried about their own future instead of worrying about the person they may put in a prison. That's another thing. And we have a lot of good judges, and we need to get judges to do that. And we've got to be in all of the schools. I mean, if there is any single thing I would say here in New Hampshire, it is to make sure that you look and around the country, wherever you come from, you look at our Start Talking program. My frustration is we can't get all the schools to participate. And we're working at it. And it's very frustrating, because if we can get the kids, and we don't need to have big education for teacher, all we need to do is have a few talking points every week. Just tell kids, don't go on the drugs. And if we can cut the number of students, if they can hear this message, we're going to start to win this battle. And then, so I think it's all those things. It's protocols, it's busting the dealers, it's having money for rehab, it's making sure you free up resources at the local level. all of these things should be done at once. I think, look, in government, my philosophy is real simple. I can chew gum and walk at the same time, so I can do multiple things at the same time. And this is a curse upon America, and it has to be destroyed. And we'll never beat it all, but we can make tremendous gains if we are really focused on this. And there's things that I'm sure I'm forgetting here, but anybody that's interested, you come to Ohio, and we'll give you the full program that we have on this. I've been working on this for 6 years. And I first got to it because a bunch of women came to see me in southern Ohio, and they had pictures of their kids. All of them had something in common. All their kids were dead from overdoses. And that's what first got me involved in it, and we've been going like crazy ever since. But here's the problem, folks. You get into this, you think you're on top of the heroin. Next thing you know, they have this fentanyl, and they're out there, and people are lacing heroin with that so they can keep a high that's longer, that's more deadly. It's unbelievable. Just got to get on top of it.
This is an interesting question from the Council of State Governments Justice Center. It's really aimed at the people who have made the mistake, have been caught up in the penal system, who are currently behind bars, maybe getting out, trying to start their lives over again. So with that said, there are 70 million adults with criminal records. Many of them have been convicted of drug crimes. As president, would you push to seal or expunge records of people convicted of drug crimes who've stayed crime-free otherwise? What other steps might you take to remove legal barriers that people convicted of these drug crimes face when seeking
Good
employment?
question. Well, look, I don't think everything is, I think sometimes presidents need to lead and states need to act, okay? And these are probably not federal crimes we're talking about. We're talking about crimes in the states. So what have we done? Well, first of all, we don't want to put these nonviolent drug offenders in prison. We want to put them in a community-based setting. And it takes resources, but we're doing it. We are making gains on that. But here's the other thing that we've done, and I can't order the private sector to do this, but we have basically banned the box. What does that mean? So here, and this is for any nonviolent offender who's a felon. So if you come to apply for a job in the state of Ohio, we've got 50,000 people, employees. And I think we've now imposed on local governments. I think they're now doing it. And I learned this from the mayor of Cleveland, who's a Democrat, African-American, who talked about to me in the first very year I was in as governor. That's why we can't have wars between the parties. I know that doesn't work in a Republican primary sometime, but that's just tough. So if you come to get a job with the state, you fill out a form. Have you ever been a felon? You check the box. We say, hey, it's nice seeing you. We take your application. We throw it in the trash can. So we now ban the box. Now, we will find out that you were a felon in the second or third interview before we hire you. But we're at least going to give you a chance to explain what happened and who you are to give you a second chance at life. And as Michael Vick says, you only have one chance to make a good second impression. And in terms of our prisons, what we do with our prisons is that first of all, we have a recidivism rate that's less than half the national average. And why? Because we have programs in the prisons to give skills to the inmates. And if you are interested in changing your life and learning a skill, we're going to give it to you. I mean, all these things are about one thing, that we don't want to waste a human being. And now, if you're a gangbanger and you're in prison, you're going to lock you up in the darkest cell you've ever been in. But if you want to work your way out, we're going to give you a chance.
Governor, thank you.